This film is a record of the Development Control meeting at Sedgemoor District Council on the 15th of February 18, application number 51170016, which is a rebuild of Greenway Garage on Quantock Road. I think we should have a judicial review of this planning application. My problem with the Greenway Garage rebuild is the amount of traffic it's going to add into the traffic stream on the A39 there. The developer's figure of 2,200 extra traffic movements a day will be funneled in and out of the A39 and Skimmerton Lane next to it, affecting pedestrians. You're obviously going to get pedestrians coming from Durley and Wemden into the garage as well as along the A39. It'll become a destination garage because it's putting a new subway, budgeon, car wash and so forth on the site, so it will create more traffic. And basically, next to Greenway Farm and Greenway Garage, we've got Cokerhurst Farm, which has got critically endangered and red list species on there. And there are 52 species of European protected birds. Basically, you're going to get a lot of traffic and a lot of vehicle pollution, which is going to affect and kill a lot of the wildlife. And it's going to affect the air quality for walkers and people with disabilities. It's already very difficult for people to walk along Skimmerton Lane, and with these extra over 2,000 traffic movements a day, it's going to make it impossible for walkers, elderly, disabled, cyclists, dog walkers and so forth. In the planning meeting, one councillor, Dave Loveridge, objected to the application, and you might particularly want to look at Councillor Janet Keane, who thought that as there are worse garages in Somerset from the point of view of traffic, that it would be okay to put all these extra traffic movements into the A39. The developer, Pharrell, employed an agency called Copesticks to canvass residents, and many residents thought that Copesticks, where the council had come around to sort of talk about road safety to them. Some residents say that Copesticks didn't explain who they were, so Copesticks were able to deliver over 200 people's comments that looked positive about the garage rebuild. Some of those people then went back to the council afterwards when they realised that Copesticks weren't the council and felt they'd been misled. Residents say they were asked if they would like better road safety at the garage, as if putting new extra traffic movements into the traffic stream would improve it, which of course it won't. One resident had been put down as having two people in his house that agreed with the garage application going through, and in fact he was vehemently against it, and two names that didn't live in his house were put there. 4 days after Sedgemoor District Council approved this application, a motorist was killed near the garage in a 2-car crash, and I really think now we need to look at judicial review for this application. So what follows is the Development Control meeting for application for Greenway Garage.
This is an application that's been before committee, I think twice now, for the redevelopment of the existing filling station with new modern facilities providing six petrol pump filling points, a shop, a sandwich outlet, and a jet wash with associated parking and changes to the access. The last time we looked at this was, I think, in December, when it was deferred to allow access arrangements to be discussed further between the applicant and the Highways Authority. At that time, the Highways Authority were maintaining an objection to the then proposed access out onto Skimmerton Lane, which would have taken all exiting traffic out via Skimmerton Lane. That has now been omitted. We have revised plans in, and the application is brought back to you now with the Highways Officer's support. So if I just go through the slides. The existing petrol station at the junction of Quantock Road, that's the A39 and Skimmerton Lane. We're out to the west of Bridgewater, so well clear of the development boundary, although there is an allocation in the emerging local plan in this area here. So there is the site in more detail. It is outside of the allocation, so it is technically countryside, but there is an existing use. And there is as a matter of principle, that is there, and we are looking in terms of the impacts of the redevelopment of the site. Just zoomed in even closer, you have a rather run-down building on the site, providing the kiosk to the fuel sales. Exit and entrance uncontrolled, you can pull in either way, but basically they're both directly out onto the A39. There's just the survey drawing, relatively small area. It is proposed to make the site bigger to fit everything on, and then within the applicant's control is a strip around the edge in which to carry out some mitigation works for landscaping and ecology reasons. Also, with the redevelopment scheme, they'll be looking to provide visibility displays for the reworked entrance directly off the A39. That would cut across Skimmerton Lane and would provide a side benefit to users of that junction, but the traffic from this scheme wouldn't be using that junction. If we should show here is the new layout. There would be a dedicated entrance at the western end of the site with a new turn right lane. Traffic will then circle round inside that's within the site. The pumps are under this canopy here. There is parking provided as well around the site and the jet wash there. Then exit would be out through the eastern side. Now that essentially mimics the way it works at the moment, albeit with a one-way system now imposed, as opposed to now where you could in theory go either way. They are showing provision over here, for a lane there. There are some concerns about that from the Highways Authority, but that would be picked up through the technical agreement of these on-highways works, which would have to go through the Highways Authority. There is, just to sort of show you the more detail, there's 3 pumping stations here, so pumps either side there, so enough space for 6 vehicles at a time to fuel. And then they are showing that tracking for the HGV to deliver the fuel goes round, and also a service area over here for the shop, and there is what's a sort of sandwich bar they're referring to at this stage, with a little sitting out area. So a range of facilities, as is sort of quite common to find at modern petrol stations. Let's just show you in a bit more detail, with the widening of the carriageway, it gets deflected this way to the north side a bit to create the room for the turn right lanes. And then the visibility is then created by peeling back the hedge here with some landscaping to follow. Just to show also that they've looked at the tracking of the vehicles to get HGVs round. They're not proposing to provide an HGV fueling point, and we're not proposing a condition to prohibit that, because at the end of the day we have to accept that a lorry that's about to, been worried about running out of petrol somewhere between here and Hinckley or in Bridgewater heading towards the motorway, they're going to pull in and they will maybe need to refuel. So we're not suggesting we make that a condition or restriction on the site, but the key thing here is they're not showing something that would enable an HGV to fill up at one of those high pressure filling pumps. There is just the elevations of the building. So you've got a low canopy, very sort of standard as you would expect to see. It's about 5.2 metres clearance under it, so probably about 5.5 metres high altogether. And there's the building that's looking at the sandwich bar end of it. And then that's the view you would see of the back of it as you are heading west. There are issues here with ecology, in particular bats. This drawing has been produced to show the ecologists that the light from the station, and you'll bear in mind modern petrol filling stations has quite a lot of light there, that can be designed and contained largely within the site, and the ecologists are happy with this in terms of adverse impacts on bats. They're saying it will not have an adverse impact that would warrant refusing permission. This is the other side of the ecology works, also landscaping. I think there is potential for slow worms and reptiles on the site. This is a sort of area where hibernacular could be provided, sort of refuges for reptiles, but also some landscape planting around the edge of the site. In terms of the relationship with existing properties, about 100 metres from the nearest one, but otherwise just over 100 metres. And then what we have today, just stood at Skimmerton Lane, pointing the camera at the existing station. It has the appearance of quite run down. It is still trading. I believe it was fire damaged a few years ago and was rebuilt just sort of really to keep it going. And then looking across the existing forecourt, so that's looking towards town. So the exit would be at the far end, the entrance would be at the near end. Everything brought over to the left as you look at that photograph to create that extra lane. then courtesy of Google Earth, just to show you the view to the west. That hedge you can see sort of behind the car there. That would be part of the visibility splay, just to provide a bit more visibility for vehicles exiting the site when looking to the west. There's the Skimmerton Lane junction, just to the south side looking across. There is a historic access just over there as an exit from the filling station site. It's not in use at the moment. They are showing it to be stopped up and not used by this development. That was always the Highway Authority's concern, that traffic, if you had directed everything leaving the petrol station out onto Skimmerton Lane, then turn left, so you're looking south, and then try and rejoin the A38, that was always the problem that the Highways Authority had, the use of that Skimmerton Lane junction. That's all now moved to the far end of the site, where the visibility is much better. And there's a view just from the back of the site towards that nearest residential property about 100 metres to the north. So in terms of the key issues, the principle of development, there is an existing fuel station here. It is going to be redeveloped. We would accept that principle. It's an existing business in the countryside. In terms of the highways impact, that was the stumbling block, the reason for the recommendation of refusal last time. The access arrangements have now been completely changed so that they reflect what currently goes on there at the site. And given the visibility that they can provide to the west and the provision of the right turn lane for vehicles entering the site, the Highways Authority's view is that it is now acceptable and they have withdrawn their objection. In terms of the visual impact, it already has some visual impact. It could have lighting introduced to that as an existing business. There's very little control we have over that. We accept that as a modern petrol station there would be more lighting, but we do have the details of that lighting. It is much higher tech than the lighting we would have seen 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's all LED, it's shown with being very directional and such that the lighting drawing they provided contains the light within the site. And that helps with the ecology issue in terms of the bats. We also have the provision for the reptile mitigation measures around the edge of the site. In terms of residential amenity, at 100 metres away, we do not see that this would have such adverse impact on the amenities of existing residents that planning permission could reasonably be withheld. And on the basis that the only reason for refusal from last time has now been addressed, our recommendation is now for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, as you'll see, we've got a number of speakers on this application, so if we could start with Mr. Brett, please. Afternoon. Again, as you know, you've got the 3 minutes. Start when you're ready to go.
Dear Chairman, members, I'm speaking on behalf of the vendor, not the applicant, but would endorse the application before members and ask that the planning officer's recommendation is supported and endorsed. Sedgemoor, as an active pro-development council, has secured vast improvements to the town, and this has driven growth through a positive approach which has seen developments in job creation, improvements in infrastructure and prosperity for the area generally. This has involved the gateways into Bridgewater to all points of the compass, save for the west side of Bridgewater, and the redevelopment of this garage site at the western gateway to the town will see a transformation of the site, albeit belatedly. It had been anticipated that these highway design changes could have been agreed some 4 years ago when the original sale was agreed, and a scheme of similar forecourt layout as proposed now was put forward and then refused because of the highway issues. This delayed the physical alterations to the site, which has impacted on my client's ability to complete a sale and retire following the fire damage to the premises. I would hope that members can appreciate the direction of travel in this application and the financial commitment and patience of the applicant, not only to secure and develop the property, but also resulting in improvements to visibility sightlines and junction improvements, all of which cater for national speed limits. You have heard SCC Highways are supportive of the proposals, having secured junction improvements on a junction which was scrutinised but which did not warrant improvement for the HPC development, despite safety being highlighted at the time by the Ward and Parish Council. These substantial improvements have been achieved, all at no cost to the taxpayer. I therefore commend this application to you. The proposed revocation of the road speed limit from Sanford roundabout into Bridgewater with its reduction to 40 miles per hour will result in an over-specification of the junction, but the design itself would not be compromised. So this would be something that critics of the former applications would have hopefully found to be positive and which they could support. You have the highway officer here who could update members on the probability of the order being approved. Whilst there has been local objection from Ward and Parish Council, their critique of the garage and design details of the previous schemes have now been fully addressed from a technical and safety audit perspective. They're not offering any professional qualified evidence to counter the applicant's technical design submissions or the recommendations of county highways. So I would ask that members have cognizance of the substantive detail provided, the recommendation on highway design, and support this application and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Heritage, would you like to come forward? Just for members to be advised, I've been, Ms. Heritage, I believe you're splitting the time between you. Okay. Okay, so basically what we're going to do, they will have the 3 minutes, which is the allocated amount of time. How they use that is up to themselves to decide. But you'll see the clock, and obviously once we get to the 3 minutes, I will have to stop whichever one of you is talking at that stage. Okay, if you start whenever you're ready.
Currently, the Government Inspector is holding a series of hearings in Bridgewater to look at the safety of the local plan. Myself and others have submitted we believe it is unsafe due to the inclusion of land, in my case, in land in the area from Cokerhurst Farm behind the site, Greenway and Queenswood Farm, including the garage site. The hearings continue through March. The developer's figure of an extra 2,200 vehicle movements a day generated by the proposed new facilities will cause extra traffic danger and extra pollution for pedestrians. The pollution will include more nitrogen dioxide and more particulates. I would ask the committee to refuse planning at this stage and require the developer to commission an air impact survey. This should be done in detailed consultation with Sedgemoor, identifying sensitive receptors, reviewing and monitoring data of background pollutant maps with detailed air quality dispersion modelling and impact on ecological receptors. Even with the new plans, with the amount of traffic which will now be coming from the Durley end of Skimmer Lane and Wemden to go to the garage and the extra facilities, that will cause significant problems for walkers. I think it's just going to be virtually impossible for locals to use that to exercise, especially with the extra pollution.
The letter presented by WYG Regional Director states that development will improve visibility on exit from the petrol station. I would suggest the Ghost Island queuing lane is approximately 60 metres in length. The average length of a car and caravan is 12 metres. With a 1 metre gap between this allows 4 cars in a caravan's combination plus 1 car to use the lane. Given the distance from the M5 to Minehead, I would suggest the bulk of traffic during the summer will be towed caravans. Now, how will slow-moving 12-metre long vehicles and HGVs cross from the garage through the queuing lane and onto the A39, with the danger of obscured vision to the left due to queuing vehicles and the curve in the road, and then have to access the A39 with vehicles travelling up to 60 miles per hour and often exceeding that on the inside lane. I would suggest there'll also be a backlog of vehicles unable to access the garage due to lack of space and vehicles waiting to access the pumps. This will have a knock-on effect to the queuing lane in the road. Finally, I wonder if holidaymakers wishing to access the garage for fuel, unable to do so due to the queuing traffic, will go on to Minehead, or will they join the queue on the Hatchings regardless of the illegality? Also, there's been no provision for pedestrians to actually get across from one side of Skimmerton Lane to the other.
I would just add that the Carrington's Wildlife Survey is at variance with the survey done by the Landmark Trust on the other side of the road, which has got completely different results.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sidaway. Afternoon again, you'll see the time on the clock starting already.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chairman, members, officers. I came to speak at the December meeting, but as it was deferred, we decided to go away and keep our powder dry. Durley Parish Council continue to object to this application on the grounds of transport and road safety. and feel that the amended proposals do not alleviate any of the problems below. This junction of the A38 and Skimmerton Lane is a recognised accident black spot, with the latest multiple collision on the 18th of December 2017. Current sight lines are wholly inadequate for the road conditions, and volume of traffic will only increase with the Hinkley C works escalating. The proposed ghost lanes may be proven in some instances, but it's strongly contended that significant additional use of the garage will cause queues at the junction, which will further impede sight lines up and down this road. The proposed reduction of bumps will not alleviate but exacerbate the problem of access by causing those queues to be even longer. The speed limit currently is 60 miles per hour, but anecdotal evidence suggests that this is routinely broken, as members who came on the site visit witnessed in November. We would suggest that to make the scheme workable and safe, that only a reduction in the speed limit to 40 miles per hour maximum from Bridgewater Quantock Road Cemetery to the Sandford roundabout would address the perceived problems. I bring to members' attention, and also to the County Highways Officer, the Parish Council would remove its objection if a condition of granting the application that it is subject to public notice 16th of January, Orders and Road Traffic Regulations Act 1984, 40 miles per hour speed limit order 2018, Schedule 1, relating to the A38 and Skimmerton Lane. This proposes a 40 miles per hour speed limit, and Durley Parish Council would recommend that members make a condition, if you decide to grant this application, that these speed limits are adopted before work starts. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Solomon, please, would you like to come forward? Afternoon.
Afternoon, Bob.
And again, just to confirm, you're speaking on behalf of Wemden Parish Council today.
I'm speaking on behalf of Wemden Parish Council.
And that on, I'm speaking on behalf of Wemden Parish Council. Chairman, the trouble with speaking last is that everyone said the good things. Sightlines, queuing, the concern that Wemden Parish Council has had from the beginning is the safety of this junction. It's a red route. There are accidents. When there's an accident, it's a 2 or 3 hour closure. This is the route to Hinkley Point. It's as simple as that. We know that the intent is to turn this into a destination garage. It was built as a garage when it was hand pumps and 1 car every 15 minutes. Life has changed. I think we agree with Durley Parish Council that a 40-mile-an-hour limit is a necessity, and enforcement of that limit is equally necessary, because it's no good having a 40-mile-an-hour limit if people go along there at 60 miles an hour. Our concerns are also with the Ghost Island, in the traffic queuing there is going to be a real problem for traffic getting out of the garage, because turning into the Minehead-headed direction, you're going to be facing a stack of traffic in front of you. So I won't waste any more of your time. I'm just saying to you, it's a safety concern, and I really think you need to put in some very tough conditions, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bown. Afternoon again, start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. I think the parish councils have spoke quite very forcefully on what their feelings are, and I see from the application it is up for refusal as County Highways have removed the objection, but still have concerns, and that's what I really wanted to bring to this committee, concerns. When rebuilt, will encourage more traffic to use it, not only for petrol, car wash, but for the odd grocery they forgot to buy. This will encourage more movement. I appreciate you have a ghost lane and an application reduction for speed limit, but I still have to register my concern as a local council on road safety, as this garage sits on a brow of a hill one way and a bend another, especially with the increased traffic for the EDF for the next 2 years until they get their jetty rebuilt. So therefore, Chairman, I would like to add my feelings that both parish councils have made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mason. And again, you'll see the time on the clock. Start when you're ready.
Chairman and councillors, my name is John Mason. We run a small family company operating petrol stations in the Somerset area. We've got 2. This would be our 3rd. We choose the sites very carefully, and when we find a site that we think is going to be good for the long term, we typically own these sites for 20 or 30 years, not 2 or 3 years as many companies do. And I think with this site we've persevered now for probably 4 years and worked with councillors and Somerset County Council to get a scheme that works. That doesn't come particularly cheap. These garages can be redeveloped by certain companies for possibly £500,000 to £1 million, do a lick and a stick, leave the building as it is. Our investment for this site, including now the highway improvements, is just over £3 million. 600,000 of that is improving a junction, which actually we're not going to utilise now for the garage use. So I think possibly many companies, if they're more commercial, would have walked away, I think, some time ago. We've stuck with it. We believe it's a good site. We think, you know, providing 30 new local jobs for people, and that's typically the sort of number of people that we'd employ in a new site. And I think just going back to the existing junction and looking at the number of accidents, actually it is relatively low compared to many other situations, which is why it's not been highlighted before. And I think the reason why you might have the odd accident there at the moment is because the sight lines are wholly inefficient and there is no turning lane at all. So actually providing those is a significant improvement and at a massive cost. So from our perspective, we've stuck with it. We've known we've needed to have detailed negotiations and discussions with highways and with the councillors. And as a result of that, we've got a scheme now which, albeit a very expensive one, I think is a perfect example of having worked together to come up with a scheme that is workable, it's got support, and it'll be an important gateway into Bridgewater, provide new jobs, and be a significant highway improvement that really is the only way that it's going to come into being. Otherwise it will be left, I guess, as it is. So my thoughts are it's something we've worked long and hard for, and I'm hoping then that the officers will see fit to grant the approval for the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just before I come to members, obviously a number of issues have been raised by the speakers relating to ghost lanes, speed limits and other issues that have been raised. I wonder if Mr. Noon and Mr. Brinkman could address those, and then I'll come to members for their comments and questions. Mr. Brinkman.
Chairman, if I can just clarify a few issues. Obviously, people have discussed a number of issues about the site and the access arrangements being proposed. As you start with the speed limit changes, I'm not directly involved in that particular process, but if you look at the scheme that's before us, we've got displays of 160 metres in each direction, and then basically those are based on the speed of traffic which was assessed using radar gun some time ago and agreed with the developer. So in the region of 50 mile an hour, the speed of traffic was assessed and agreed. So regardless of what happens with the speed limit, the displays that you're getting as part of this scheme meet those requirements for that speed of traffic as it is now. Obviously, if the 40 mile per hour limit goes through and it's implemented, then that's welcomed. Enforcement is somewhat of a network management issue and unrelated to planning, because in this instance, if we were to put a condition on requiring the TRO, it's subject to public consultation and therefore could fail, and therefore you would end up with a situation where there would be a condition we can never discharge as far as this proposal was concerned. So the speed limit issue, I would welcome the 40, but it's designed for the speed of traffic as it is. So that isn't an issue for the Highway Authority in terms of this application as it stands. The right turn lane itself, you can see it in front of you. It's basically what we've got is a preliminary design that we've received from the developer. It's a vast improvement over the proposal that we had previously. It's deleted the access onto Skimmerton Lane, and it provides a right turn lane into the site for vehicles to wait clear of the running lane. It would be designed in line with TD 4295, which is the trunk road design guidance on right turn lanes, sort of thing you'd find on the A303. So basically, that's got to meet our standards. So we've got a scheme in front of us which we're happy with in general terms. There will be some tweaking to that design. It may well change a little bit, and we may see a change where you've got that Skimmerton crossroad situation where we don't encourage a right turn movement in terms of certainly on one side. So that would evolve as part of the technical approval process. So that's a drawing which, if you like, is a work in progress at the moment, but it's certainly going to lead on to a detailed design and engineering scheme which we would receive and go through a full section 278 technical approval process for that. And they certainly won't be allowed to do any works on the highway until we were entirely happy and we'd given them technical approval to start works on the highway. The work themselves would be bonded, so there'd be no cost to the public. They would be controlled by our staff on site and with an agreed programme of works. So really, the right turn lane as it stands, we feel it meets our aspirations for achieving a safe and satisfactory access to this site. When you bear in mind it's an existing garage, it certainly is a vast improvement over and above what's there at the moment. If there was a pedestrian safety issue, you could look at introducing islands in the hatched areas to get pedestrians across the A39 safely. Skimmerton Lane itself, there are some small changes. If you look at the left-hand side of the junction, I think the radii are changing, well, certainly on both sides, the radii are changing, and so there are some works. That part of Skimmerton Lane will change, but the rest of it will remain the same. It's quite narrow in terms of its width, so putting a pedestrian island in at the junction wouldn't really work in terms of getting larger vehicles around sort of that corner or through that junction. So probably would not work in terms of technical detail, but again, it's not such a wide road as to cause us a problem in terms of pedestrian safety. I think really that's about it, I think, Chairman, from the issues I thought we'd raised. Anything you want to add?
No, I think it's just the point that sorry, we're saying that the access improvements need to be carried out generally in accordance with the drawings we see here. I think what Mr. Brickman is underlying is that there is then a technical process in terms of standards that goes through. So we have oversight of it, and then they follow that up with the technical oversight.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from members? Yes, Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Chairman. Following our site visit, I wrote my notes based on what was there then. This is before these amended papers were published. And I'm very, very glad to do that the County Council's highways people have amended their original recommendation following consultation. As so many people have addressed road safety, I think it would be right to draw attention to the fact that in many ways this is almost a mirror image of other sites on the A338 and on the A370, which probably carry far heavier traffic loads, both ordinary cars and big HGVs, than this road. In particular, Limpsham on the A370, there's Lower Weir on the A38. On the A38 again, you've got Roborough Corner, which is a horrible dogleg corner, and there's Chute Shelf. And the geography of the road and minor roads that come onto it are very, very similar. I've not been notified that or heard that there has been any increase in the notifiable traffic accidents at those spots, because In all of those areas, there is very strict management of the behaviour of traffic, including enforcement of speed limits, as one of the speakers did ask for. This particular site, because of its location, I would never envisage that to be one of the gas guzzler sites. So I think the estimate of the traffic is wildly exaggerated. The applicant has informed us that additional land has been acquired at the rear, as we've now seen. And also, there's been questions of the lighting interfering with the ecology. I would not expect this to be a 24-hour site, and therefore I would imagine that during the night, say between 11 o'clock at night and 6 in the morning, it would be closed and dark. Even though, had there not been a change in the recommendations, I feel very much inclined that I would support the application, because it has a great deal of merit both in business and use, and also turning a derelict site of what is a long existing site into a modern through traffic. This is not a destination, as one of the speakers thought. This is a place where people are passing by. When people are on the A39, they're there because they're going somewhere. It is unlikely that they would be there as a detour or by accident. So my personal view is that I very much support the application.
Mr. Noon, any comments before I move on to other speakers?
Yes. If I could quickly just there is no. I'm not suggesting at this stage that there be any control on the hours of opening of the garage. The existing garage isn't subject to control, and therefore I think the applicant's entitled to have that as a. We acknowledge that as a fallback position. So that was my thinking in terms of my recommendation. The existing operation can operate 24 hours. I didn't see a need to ensure that to try and restrict the new one, but members may want to debate that point.
Councillor Loveridge.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm afraid I'm in complete opposition to the last speaker. I think traffic on the A38, Chairman, from junction 24, junction 23 is a HBC route. So you've got two lots of traffic coming onto the A39. Now, you are going to ask people to cross that road, as been mentioned by speakers. But Chairman, with the extra HPC traffic, that is an accident looking at. The tragedy of it is, this is a lovely business plan, it's a good idea, and unfortunately it's in the wrong place. And I'm afraid I can't support it, Chairman, for several reasons on highway issues.
Councillor Herbert.
Unfortunately for me, I'm in complete support of Councillor King. I've listened to all the arguments and I've read the papers, and if you read through the papers, the principal concerns over highways. In fact, one of the councillors objecting actually says she supports the idea of the improvement of the site, albeit not now. Well, unfortunately, business can't have not now. It has to make commercial decisions. The other councillor thinks that in the adjacent ward that it will be an improvement. And we were lucky enough, through the actions of one of our councillors who's not here today, and thank God she did move that motion, which is we went for a site visit and then we delayed and allowed the parties to go away and talk. And it looks like they've gone away and talked to each other, and the planning officer and the highways and the developer have come up with, might not be perfect, but an acceptable solution which can allow us to deliver what is clearly a huge economic benefit to this district. Figures of £3 million quoted of their own money. That's a lot of money. £600,000 spent on highways improvements, which the concern about line of sight apparently has been addressed within this development's costs. At no cost to the taxpayer. No cost to the taxpayer. And yet at our meeting later last year, the highways officer did say they had major concerns about this junction. So here's somebody, a developer, come along and said, look, I'll put that right for you. So they've taken on board the concerns of the county council and tried to address it, and at the same time create wealth in the community and create jobs. If you use statistics, you can prove anything. So the ghost lane could be long enough, might not be long enough, but who knows how many people are going to go in, and who knows how many people are going to come out. That's no different to any petrol station. You'll have to queue. You go and try use Sainsbury's in Taunton. You have to queue out of the car park because it's popular. So are we saying that it's in the wrong place? No. So I'm comfortable in what's happened. The changes to the highway, which we have to support, because County Highways say they've looked at it and they work together and they come up with a solution. They've adopted a pragmatic and flexible approach, have proven that with the right, and we have proven with the right level of engagement, we've come to a sensible and considered solution. Might not be perfect, but it's a considered solution. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. The original application I wasn't happy with. I think with a lot of other councillors when we went down there and saw it. But I think this is a significant improvement, and I think it ticks the boxes. And I agree with most of what's been said by Councillor Keane and Councillor over there. Can't remember his name for a minute. I can't see it. Herbert, get it right in a minute.
Thanks, Tony.
Just to make sure you're awake. Yeah, I'm quite happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Glassford.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I used Greenway Garage from 83 to 89 on a regular basis when I lived out in Carrington. Even when there was crawling, the traffic was crawling coming on a Saturday coming out of Minehead, there wasn't many accidents. Any improvement to that junction, which has been suggested now, will make it far safer. But in my time of living in Carrington, there was not very many accidents at that junction, and I will support it.
Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions from members? Councillor Herbert.
One additional comment, Mr. Chairman. It was quite a unique approach by Durley Parish Council seeking the reduction in the speed limit. But fortunately, because we've got a highways officer here, I've explained why that just doesn't come about, and he's quite right. Let's not condition something that we might never ever be closed out, because if you remember this morning, we got a few examples of that, and I don't want another one of them.
Is there any further comments or questions? If not, we have a recommendation that has been moved and seconded to grant permission. Those in favour of that, please show. And those against, please show. And that's the entire numbers, isn't it? Yeah. So that is clearly carried, so permission is granted. Could we invite Councillor Bradford back, please?